Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We are now getting ready to participate in the 31st day of session, February the 26th, 2025, the 68th Wyoming Legislature. Pronounce it correctly. Chief Clerk, will please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the 31st day, February 26th, 2025. Alamand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown, Gary? Brown, Landon? Byron? Campbell, Elisa? Campbell, Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Excused, Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins? Excused, Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Worf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker.
We'll leave it open briefly. I know there's a couple members on there that will not be here this morning, but members Eklund, McCann, and Lawley and those folks, I think they probably are on their way. So we'll leave it open briefly and do a couple other things. Ladies and gentlemen, our prayer of the day is going to be led again by our good Representative Angelos. So if we would please rise, she will open us in prayer. Thank you, Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, let's go to the word first. Micah 6:8. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for every heart that's joined us today in this chamber, online, and in the state of Wyoming. We just pray that we keep justice in mind today, Lord, that we do your justice, that we walk humbly, and that we serve you and serve the people of Wyoming to our best ability. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Fellow members and guests, join me in the salute to our flag. Extend the right hand of fellowship to one another. Enjoy it for a few minutes. Say howdy, and we'll let these other folks get to the chamber, and then we will continue on. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and start finding our seats again. I think we've got the rest of the house assembled. We can finish our roll call, and then we can do our journal committee report. I Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Chief Clerk would like to finish the roll. So as we said yesterday, this has great sound acoustics in here. Shh, so she can hear. Chief Clerk.
McCann. Nicholas. Rodriguez Williams. Wasserberger. 58 present, 4 excused.
Thank you, Chief Clerk, and thank you, body. See how much easier that is? It's just like you could hear crickets in here if they were crickets. It's wonderful. Representative Singh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a beautiful day. The sun is shining, and we do have this wonderful building with incredible acoustics, and we have such an occasion today to exercise those acoustics. It is Representative Landon Brown's birthday. So I'm...
Oh, this is going to be
What's
brutal.
All
Okay,
right.
it looks like Representative Gary Brown would like to lead the charge on this one, so Representative Brown, if you could exercise the golden pipes and please lead us in happy birthday. Congratulations and happy birthday, Representative Brown. You started this, so you get to, and a special shout out, I think it was to Representative Wiley. I don't know what you hit there, but that was beautiful. I mean, you took it way over the top, dude. That was fantastic. I think there are some cats that are being addressed outside right now with that. So anyway, very good. You guys done a great job as always. Representative Yin, please.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Mr. Speaker, it's not often that folks from my neck of the woods come down to the Capitol, but if you guys could stand and please welcome 3 folks from Jackson. We have the new mayor of Jackson, Arn Jorgensen, and 2 new council members, Councilwoman Devin Veman and Councilwoman Allison Sperry. It's Allison's very first time to the Capitol, so please welcome them to the House.
Welcome Teton County to the House. We always describe you folks as I believe it's the land where the mountains are tall. So beautiful, beautiful country, and welcome to the House. We got 2 trying to encourage each other here. I see I got one rah-rah and another one in the front. So Representative Filer, he's already pretty excited about Representative Kelly's already, must maybe know something we don't. So anyway, Representative Filer.
Mr. Speaker, can I have a quick privilege?
Yeah, you sure can.
All right, Mr. Speaker. Man, booze all over the, oh, I see how it is. Okay, hold on. All right, Mr. Speaker, I'm pretty sure everybody's probably going to get this joke, but I think it's funny. But, so why do birds fly south for the winter? Does anyone know? I got you all on this one. Because it's too far to walk.
I can see a tradition kind of starting to form with this. So, very good. Well, thank you, Representative Filer. Okay, any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll go on to our Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 25th, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Posey and Jarvis.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Next is our Doctor of the Day. Today we have with us, come on, step up into the chamber so we can see who you are. This is Tracy Haas, Board Certified Family Physician and Clinical Assistant Professor in the Department of Family Medicine at the University of Washington School of Medicine as part of the WWAMI Medical School Program on campus at the University of Wyoming is who we have with us today. Welcome to the House, Doctor. Thank you for being here and looking after us and keeping us well and getting our jobs done. We have a special event here later on. I'm not sure, I have yet to hear if they are here yet, but we do have an event that'll be coming. So until that shows up, messages from the Senate.
Message 357. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 28, Commercial Driver's License Revisions. The state adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report on the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 21, noes 10. Message 358. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 11, Manufacturing Sales and Use Tax Exemption Amendments. The Senate adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report on the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 27, noes 4. Message 359. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 127, Administrative Rules, Legislative Review. The Senate failed to concur on the House amendments to the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 0, noes 30, excused 1. Message 360. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like Committee Number 1 from the House on amendments to Senate File 127. The Senate conferees are Senator Boner, Chairman, Senator Crago, Senator Rothfuss. Message 361. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 39, Automatic Transfer of Automobile Title Upon Death. Ayes 31. Message 362. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 64, Chemical Abortions Ultrasound Requirement. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 24, noes 7. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 363. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 242, Manufacturers and Dealers of New Trailers, Changes. Ayes 31. Message 364. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like Committee Number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 1. The Senate conferees are Senator Salazar, Chairman, Senator Beitman, Senator Guru, Senator Larson, Senator Nethercott. Message 366. Mr. Speaker, the Senate adopted the Committee of the Whole report, failing the bill listed below by the vote indicated. House Bill 235, Career Technical Education Equipment and Supplies. Ayes 4, noes 27. The bill has been indefinitely postponed. Message 8. Mr. Speaker, the Senate has completed consideration of the budget bill, House Bill 1. In accordance with Joint Rule 14-1G, the bill has been referred directly to a conference committee of 5 members to meet with a like committee from the House to report recommended amendments for final consideration by both houses with respect to both budget bills, House Bill 1 and Senate File 1, and the amendments thereto. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Okay, we've got we don't have any enrolled acts, do we, right now? Just concurrence. Oh, we do have some? Okay. First, but before we do the enrolled acts, so we'll do some concurrence requests. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman Williams, message number 362. We'll go ahead and get that done.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move message number 362, original House Bill 64, titled Chemical Abortions Ultrasound Requirements, and ask for an aye vote on concurrence. essentially what the other side of the hall did was they removed on page 2, lines 1 and 2, and on page 3, they did some renumbering there. Page 3, line 22, they deleted physician or pharmacist and they inserted healthcare provider. They did the same thing on page 4, line 17, same thing on page 4, line 20. And then the same similar language on page 5, line 4, they deleted physician or pharmacist and they inserted healthcare provider. And then similar change on page 5, line 6. On page 5, lines 1 and 2, they made a change and inserted confirmation of intrauterine pregnancy and gestational age of the unborn baby. Page 3, lines 8 through 10, they deleted the language that was there and inserted a new definition for the word chemical abortion, meaning the use of any medication, drug, substance, or combination thereof that is prescribed or administered for the purpose of terminating a pregnancy once the pregnancy can be confirmed through conventional medical testing. And then on page 5, line 13, they deleted 5 years, so they changed the penalty and lowered it from 5 years and they made it a misdemeanor, punishable by imprisonment for not more than 6 months and a fine not to exceed $9,000. And again, I would just ask for an aye on concurrence.
Is there any discussion on the concurrence? Speaker Nyman.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. Yeah, I would concur with this. I've looked this over, chatted with them as they were making the amendments and worked with the amendment bringers on the Senate side in the process when they were doing it. And these are good additions. These are good clarifications on the definitions. This does not harm the bill in any way. I actually think this actually strengthens the bill. The only thing that they really reduced would be on the page 5, line 13, where they changed basically the fines, and I'm good with that, and I hope that you would be as well. Good amendments, good changes. I think it strengthens the bill, and on in support.
Minority Floor Leader Yin.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, thank you. So members, I think I was personally accused of being inaccurate about whether this bill required a transvaginal ultrasound or not, so sticking the wand up inside someone or not. I think that the amendments that the Senate made it even more clear. That amendment that requires verifying the intrauterine pregnancy and the gestational age basically makes it extremely clear that the only thing that can do that within that period of time, less than 10 weeks, is going to be a transvaginal ultrasound. So going to vote no on concurrence. I'm going to go continue being against the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Anyone else? Any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 64. A majority of the elected members is required. Chief Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Allemande. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Brady. Bratton. Brown Gary. Brown Landon. Byron. Campbell Elisa. Campbell Kevin. Chestick. Clouston. Repeat. Connolly. Davis. Eklund, excused. Erickson. Filer. Geringer. Guggenmoss. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Heft. Jarvis. Johnson. Repeat. Kelly. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Lean. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas, excused. Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Thayer. Repeat. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Wharf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker. Are there any changes? Bear, excused to aye. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 47 aye, 12 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 64. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our special event has arrived, so we're going to go ahead and introduce these young men. Okay, today with us, go ahead and step on in here, gentlemen. This morning, with great pride and honor that we welcome Coach Will Gray, the head football coach of Pine Bluffs High School, and assistant coaches Brian Anderson, Nick Yelton, and Carl Federer. We are also pleased to have Principal Todd Sweeter joining us today. Under Coach Gray's exceptional leadership, the Pine Bluff Hornets have achieved remarkable success, winning the 4 state championships, including the 2024 state title. Coach Gray has been the assistant coach twice in the past for the Shrine Bowl and has now been named as the head coach for the South team in the 52nd annual Wyoming Shrine Bowl All-Star Football Game. Fellow representatives, please join me in extending a warm welcome to these distinguished guests. Now I would like to invite senior player Justin Lerwick to say a few words. Above you in your south gallery, as you all notice, these well-dressed young men, that's the team, so.
Speaker Nyman and representatives, thank you for bringing us here today to honor our group of young men. I can truly say that this is the most coachable group of young men I've had in 14 years as a head coach. And with me today is Justin Lerwick, who kind of embodies that. He is the most team-first young man I've had in 18 years overall of being a coach. And Justin would like to share a few more words about him and his teammates.
Thank you. Speaker Nyman and representatives, we are thankful to be honored during this year's legislative session. I have been given a great opportunity to participate with some great teammates and guided by good coaches over my years at Pine Bluffs High School. I have had the opportunity to win 4 state titles between football and basketball with my teammates, 2 football and 2 basketball. We hope to add to that over the next couple months. Extracurricular activities are just that, extra, but they give opportunities to learn very valuable lessons. Championship teams are made a little bit like great legislation. The work that is seen by the general public is only a small % of the work that goes into both. We appreciate you for funding education and valuing extracurricular activities in this great state. By the end of the spring semester, our roster will have earned 127 college credits as a team. Our % of participation in extracurricular activities in Pine Bluffs is 85%. 66% of males play football at Pine Bluffs. On a personal note, I am proud to call Representative Eklund my neighbor, and am thankful for the life lessons I have learned from Representative J.D. Williams. Since cowboy poetry wasn't one of them, I will wrap this up. Thank you for your thoughtful and careful work as you guide this great state to be sustainable for not only my generation, but the ones to follow as well.
All right, there it is. Once they finally get it out of their system. Who will be last? Oh, Cody Wiley got to be last, except for Wharf, almost. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We just want to let you know how much we appreciate you coming today and sharing with the House. And you fine group of young men up there and all you're doing, please stand again for us. We thank you for being here today, and we appreciate your efforts and working as a team and all of what you're going to do in the future. So thank you, gentlemen. We wish you long and continued success in your careers individually. So thank you for being here. All right, moving on to other business before the chamber.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Representative Larson Lloyd.
privilege to the floor, if I may.
Absolutely. Please proceed.
So while we're making acknowledgements and appreciate these good boys from the eastern side of the state being here, I'd just like to acknowledge a minor accomplishment for the Lander Valley High School Tigers men's swim team, who just this last weekend made their 29th consecutive state championship. Mr. Chairman, 29. 29.
29, 2-9, consistent. That's incredible. See, in my part of the country, you don't have enough water to make that work. So that's awesome. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Appreciate you sharing that with the body. So next we have ladies and gentlemen, we're at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. First enrolled act for our consideration, House Enrolled Act number 34.
House Enrolled Act Number 34, being original House Bill 242, an act relating to motor vehicles, requiring applicants for motor vehicle dealer licenses who sell trailers to submit a sales authorization agreement, exempting motor vehicle dealers and manufacturers who sell trailers from specified provisions, providing definitions and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 34, having been original House Bill 242. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Tarver. Next enrolled act for our consideration, Enrolled Act number 40.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 40, being original Senate File 39, an act relating to motor vehicles, providing for the automatic transfer of a vehicle title on death, providing definitions, providing exceptions, requiring rulemaking, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 40, having been originally Senate File number 39. I have so signed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with enrolled acts briefly here now, so we'll move on to some concurrences. We had to name a concurrence conference committee. This is in regards to message number 359. Representative Knapp, did you want to elaborate on this, or you want me to just go ahead and name the committee? Committee named? Go ahead. All right. The committee will be to go and discuss this from the House's perspective. Chair will be Representative Tarver, and there will also be Representatives Webb and Yin will be our conference committee on that. So next. Is there any other unfinished business, Chief Clerk? I think that's it, isn't it? It goes back. Okay, Senate files on first reading. We are at that order of business, so Senate files on first reading and introduction. Chief Clerk, the first bill for our consideration, Senate File 27.
Senate File
reading.
27, sponsored by Transportation.
First reading of the bill.
Wyoming National Guard member referral amendments.
Senate File 27 will be assigned to our committee number 8, Transportation. That's the only one we had left there, ladies and gentlemen, so that will move on. And I've got to show you, these people understand me. I bet some of you can even read that font from there. Isn't that fantastic? Tell you people that care about you. These three right here. I'm telling you. It's awesome. Love you guys. All right, next thing. Reports from our standing committees.
Senate File 101, sponsored by Senator Landon. Post-conviction DNA testing procedure amendments, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 101, post-conviction DNA testing procedure amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation of do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Singh, Vice Chairman. Senate File 116, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, anti-money laundering, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 116 engrossed, anti-money laundering, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation of do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Singh, Vice Chairman. Senate File 122, sponsored by Senator Cooper, voyeurism, sex offender registration amendment, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 122, voyeurism, sex offender registration amendment. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Singh, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Oh, we do have one more? Okay.
Senate File 71, sponsored by Senator Brennan, ignition interlocked restricted license, aggravated homicide, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 71, ignition interlocked restricted license, aggravated homicide. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Singh, Washit, Webb. Noes, Representatives Bratton, Lean. Representative Singh, Chairman, Vice Chairman.
That's it. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to bills on second reading. First bill for our consideration is second reading bill number 9, Senate file. Chief Clerk. Reading clerk, yeah. I don't know why I tried to switch you guys' jobs. Maybe I'm just trying to give her a break or whatever. I don't know, but reading clerk, please.
Senate File 9, sponsored by Judiciary, restoration of rights amendments, an act relating to criminal procedure.
Senate File 16, Senate File 9, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 132.
Senate File 132, sponsored by Senator Jones, protecting critical infrastructure and systems from drones, an act relating to defense forces and affairs.
Okay, we have amendments. Representative Brown, Landon. Senate File 140, no, wait a minute, you're 147. Well, hold on. Yeah, 132. Where's the amendments? I don't have any for it yet. I just show 147. Shows here we got 2 amendments on 132. Okay. All right. Representative Larson, JT, please proceed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 132 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, yesterday we had this discussion on the drone bill regarding liability concerns for peace officers, guard members that enforce the provisions of the language we are putting into statute. So I bring to you some language that will solve that. Basically gives our Attorney General representation power, or forces the Attorney General to represent them for complying with subsections E or F on page 5. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, but this is just an effort to try to address the liability concerns that for our peace officers.
Thank you, Representative. Any members for their first time? First time on second reading amendment number 1 to House or Senate File 132. Representative Washut, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it seems like this gets us about halfway. This gives us representation for these members, but it doesn't specifically talk about liability coverage for damages, punitive or otherwise, that might be assessed against these members. Can you address that?
Thank you, Representative Washut. Any others for their first time? No one running to the microphones? Second time? Go ahead. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That specific part will have to be addressed in a third reading amendment as well. So, but this gets us, at least this part of it, fixed. So with that, I call for the question.
Question being called. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 132. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. We have another amendment, number 2, brought by Representative J.T. Larson. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'll move second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 132 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, yesterday, there was some discussion about funding that may need to be provided for equipment and such to bring these drones down. And it may be too high of a number, it may be too low, I don't know, depending on what the guard deems necessary and to purchase for equipment. Well, it'll depend on how much it will end up costing, but anything that they don't spend obviously reverts back to the budget. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, but yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Any members for their first time on the amendment? Representative Majority Floor Leader Heiner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bringer of the bill, I just a couple of questions. Have you discussed this with that National Guard? Have they told you what kind of equipment they need and the reason for that equipment and the cost that equipment would be and who would maintain that equipment and some of those specifics about this?
Any other members for their first time? First time? None? First time. Representative Bear, Chairman Bear.
Mr. Speaker, first for a second.
First for a second. Any other members for their first time? Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Just for the bringer of the amendment, I'm curious on why you put model aircraft. Are you hoping that the National Guard will shoot down some model aircraft?
Any other members for their first time? First time? Seeing none, second time. Second time, none. Back to the bringer, Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, members, yesterday we had the discussion about, there are certain technologies where they can aim like a radar at it and it disrupts the signal. I don't think that's going to cost $5 million, but I think they're pretty hard to research and come by. So I think that would have to be something they'll have to dig into. I don't think they'll have that information right off the top of their head. Netting, I wouldn't imagine would cost very much to drop over the top of them. I mean, it's just standard netting, so it probably doesn't cost a whole lot of money there. But also, if they decide they need to buy an aircraft to shoot these things down, then it gives them that flexibility as well. So with that, I will stand for, I guess I can't stand for any questions because I'm the last person to speak. So encourage an aye vote. And if not, I'll come back with more information on third reading.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 132. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Huh? Is it? Oh, that's right. Yep. Nope. There's an appropriation on this, so we'll have to have a roll call. Good catch, Representative Provenza. Thank you. We'll hold a little bit here while the chief clerk gets that all ramped up, so maybe here's an opportunity while she's getting that put together. Representative Johnson, you have some people you'd like to, oh, she's ready. Representative Johnson, hang tight, she's ready. She's ready to rock and roll, so hang tough, and then you'll have you recognize those folks. Chief clerk.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown, Gary? Brown, Landon? Byron? Campbell, Elisa? Campbell, Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund, excused. Erickson? Feiler? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Repeat? Jarvis? Johnson? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Excused. Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Worf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 6 aye, 53 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen not to adopt second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 132. Senate File 132 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Now, Representative Johnson, you have some very special people you would like to recognize, I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have some young citizens from Burns Elementary School. Their teacher is Christina Pathson, and I'd like to welcome them and give them a big hello. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House. Glad to have you. Representative Eklund was supposed to do that, but he is not available, so we thank Representative Johnson for taking care of that. Okay, I just want you to take a good look. Look at that teacher up there taking care of them kids. She is doing an awesome job keeping those little young men and women organized and headed to the Senate, I would imagine, or somewhere to the west. So thanks for coming, guys. Representative Brown. All right, next bill for our consideration, Senate File 147. Reading clerk.
Senate File 147, sponsored by Senator Hutchings. Service dogs, training and crimes, an act relating to the protection and rights of blind and disabled persons.
Excuse me, we have amendments. Representative Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 147 and ask for your favorable consideration. Body, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds with this, but I do want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it to ensure that as we go through this process, these poor dogs that are up behind you here in the West Gallery that had to listen to that horrible rendition of Happy Birthday, and as they started howling when you guys were singing to me, that we give them the protections that we're talking about, but we're not trying to bring in the protections for said emotional support animals. So what does this amendment do? If you read into the amendment, it's really it looks wonky, but really what we're doing is we're taking out all the new language between lines 9 and 13. Well, why are we doing that? Well, because if we open up the language that is in assistance animal, we're providing those protections for for assistance animals, not service animals. And there are two very distinct differences in these protected classes. The only reason why we have service animal in our statutes is because of housing and urban development rules, okay? And we have to allow people with emotional support animals to abide by federal law and landlords to abide by federal law. So that's why we have that in statute. What this bill is trying to do is protect those working service animals and those service animals that are being trained. If they want to go to the hardware store or something like that, and we need them to be able to be exposed to the the stimulus that's outside in these areas and go through that process, we want those dogs to be protected. We're not talking about the emotional support animals. So in drafting this particular piece of legislation, not a shocker to everybody, but the way that this comes out is everybody assumes that assistance animals and service animals are the same thing, and they're not. So I worked with the bringer of the entire bill, it's down on the other side edge of the body, had the very frank conversation with them and a couple of counselors that work indirectly with this particular piece of legislation. They are all comfortable with this, and all we're doing is striking that new language from assistance animals and making sure that we keep the new language, which is in lines 18 through 20, which is the service animal language that says, hey, look, we want to make sure that your animal that is being trained is also covered by these protected statuses as well. So with that, again, don't want to go into too much detail, but if I have questions out there, I'm more than happy to answer any of those.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Filer, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For one, I love dogs. Just throwing that out there. But I think, I totally understand the concept of this bill. I understand the concept of the amendment. But I'm against this amendment, folks. And let me tell you one reason why. Because inside of the emotional support side, it starts off with a person with a disability. So my daughter has a service dog, but she also has another dog. His name's Bacon. And Bacon is what sometimes keeps my daughter from going and maybe having a seizure or get too worked up or things like that. So this dog, she just takes with her all over the place, and she just pets it. It's kind of a service in a way to her to keep her calm and not elevate her or stimulate her in order to maybe possibly have a seizure and some other things. So I understand the amendment, folks, but I think cutting the whole new language out, there is some very good benefits to an emotional support animal, especially with young kids with disabilities. It might not be a trained up dog or anything like that and a whole bunch of money spent, but it might be just that one thing that keeps that child feeling safe within themselves even. So with that, Mr. Speaker, on and against this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Ottman, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. From what I saw in committee was the bill bringer is working very, very hard to get it so that service dogs can go into businesses and get all of the life training that they need to go into libraries, to go into stores, to walk down the street, to go into doctor's offices, to go wherever a person with disabilities would need to go. So they need the protection of having these animals so that they're not bothered. The reason I talked with the bringer of the amendment, the reason that the amendment was brought was because there is a differentiation between emotional support dogs and these service dogs. Emotional support dogs are already protected and they're already considered. This is to allow animals that are in training. They haven't quite arrived, but they have a definite job to do. So I would just, I'm support the amendment and support the bill. Thank you.
Representative Straub, first time.
Thank you, Speaker. Actually, I was almost walked away because I'm totally in agreement with the last speaker, but I just clarify this bill is just for dogs in training for service. That's all this is about. So this is aye on the amendment. It has nothing to do with emotional dogs for service dogs. So please, it's just for the ones for training. So an aye on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Weber, your first time.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Good morning.
I am in favor of this amendment, and I was on the elevator with some of the candidates that are up there, and I can tell you that even the youngest one in training is very well trained to some commands, and they're very friendly and fluffy. Vote yes for the amendment.
Any other members? First time. No members, second time? Seeing none, back to the bringer, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the consideration on this amendment. Again, the original draft of this bill, as it left the other body, there was some consternation last night when I put the amendment in. The sponsor saw it, came down here, left me a note, called me like 6 times, was scared to death that I was trying to beat up on the bill. And I promised her and everybody else that she had worked with at this point that I am actually just trying to clean up this bill. After speaking with her this morning, having multiple conversations with her as well as our attorneys, as well as all the people that this bill is actually for, we're all in agreement and we all understand that we're not trying to add additional protections for emotional support animals, and stripping out this language removes that. We're trying to give those protections to the service animals that truly do need this, and we're trying to get it to where they can go out and they have the authority. That's truly what we're trying to grant here, is some authority to these people who are training these dogs to go out into public and be treated just like as if the dog was fully trained. But how do you get that dog fully trained? Well, you have to expose them to the real world. And that's all we're trying to do. And so the people who are walking up and down in the big blue box store that has lots of lumber and stuff like that, they were saying, hey, look, you can't do that because this dog is not protected because they're in training. Well, I feel like that is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to give this protection to them. So at a state level, we can do that. We can provide them this protection. That's exactly what this bill does. This amendment strips out the emotional support side of things and really focuses on what we're trying to do. So vote aye on this and aye on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 147. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration to Senate File 147. Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 147 for your favorable consideration. Folks, I talked about this on Committee of the Whole yesterday. I think that increasing this penalty to $5,000 actually works against the people that are looking for protections for their service animals. It makes the fine so high that it's unlikely to be prosecuted. I've heard this countless times from prosecutors when they're talking about other instances where the fine is too high. I also want to say it is not congruent with our other misdemeanors by a long shot. One of the concerns I had, so I looked at 6.3.1004, and that is penalties, misdemeanor offenses for animal cruelty. So in 6.3.1002, that outlines what animal cruelty is, which I'm just trying to look at the difference between animal misdemeanor cases. But when someone abuses their animal under the statute for cruelty to animals, they have a $750 fine. So to bring this statute up to $5,000, which again is not someone physically harming someone's service animal, it's their animal harming a service animal, seems very, very steep. Additionally, in the penalties for animal cruelty, it goes into if there's a second offense, then people can be looked at, and the fine there is $5,000. And again, this is for folks that are physically abusing animals to such a degree that the law has been involved. So I think if we leave the bill as it is with the increase in the penalty, and as we heard in testimony in committee, no one is prosecuting these cases. And it's not that they haven't been brought, they've been brought, but prosecutors haven't taken them. So I would subject to you that we have an issue with prosecution, and maybe there's something wrong with how we've outlined the law so that they feel comfortable prosecuting. Adding a $5,000 fine is not likely to increase the use of that. So I would ask for your favorable consideration on this, and I'll answer any questions that you have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members? Representative Johnson, your first time.
I think
Microphone was off briefly, so go ahead, Representative.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am against this amendment. These dogs have considerable training in them, and they're worth up to $25,000 once they're finished. That would be like, and if your dog gets attacked in training, they might not ever be used as a service animal again. So this is like having your car totaled out and not have any restitution or any way to get back at the people. I mean, we want to make sure that these animals are protected. So I'm against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for their first time? Representative Larson, Lloyd, first time.
Thank you. Then I might ask the question then based on the last comment to the presenter of the amendment. If I had a dog that was verifiably a very expensive dog by virtue of training and whatnot, and it was damaged, I'd have legal recourse civilly, would I not?
Thank you, Representative. Representative Brown, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to answer that question, yes, you could have civil remedy, and I think it's also somewhat logical to think about it like restitution, but also this is a fine, right? This is not something that's going to go back to the person who did it. But I am in full support of having a higher fine on this. And to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, when I brought this bill 8 years ago, and we actually have other fines in this, this only takes one of about 3 different sets of fines that are in this section of statute to this level. But I will say, when you start going after these animals that cost $25,000, $35,000 worth of training, and you have these types of animals that are potentially hurt or harmed or in these situations, I absolutely think that they should be, hit with a sizable fine. And I would actually argue the opposite against my good friend from over the hill here, that I think that having a higher fine actually makes it more probable that you would actually see this prosecuted. Our prosecutors are neck deep right now with very serious crimes, and a $750 fine, it costs them more to prosecute that fine than it is for them to get that fine out of the person anyways. So I would say having a $5,000 fine, and let's be clear, it's up to $5,000, that gives a long range, right? That prosecutor has the opportunity to charge them with $2,500 or all the way up to $5,000. So I would actually say that this gives a broad latitude and actually gives a better opportunity for prosecutorial, movement, as opposed to doing a $750 fine, which I don't disagree. This doesn't match some of our other misdemeanor crimes. I think maybe we should be looking at that because that's a lot of what our DAs are dealing with right now. But on and against this amendment, and still very, very heavily in favor of this bill.
Any other members for their first time? First time? Second time? Speak second time to the amendment. None? To the bringer, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So folks can still sue through civil court. If their animal, they've done training, they can say this person was negligent with their animal or they were malicious with their animal, and they can go to civil court and they can settle it there and be given the amount of money. that they needed to replace or damage is done. The other thing that can happen is courts now, with the current law, is that they can order restitution. So they can say that you have to provide some funds to the person that was impacted by your crime, in addition to the penalties that they have. If you have an increased penalty of $5,000 and the person, $5,000 is a lot of money for me, and that goes to the court, then what's the restitution going to look like? So I think that there's questions about whether this is going to work the way that folks want it to. And I'm looking at our statutes, and because now I'm in Title VI, where most of our misdemeanors are. And I'm looking at the fines in here, and you have some serious crimes that have a $750 fine. I don't think it's good governance to say, because this involves cute, fluffy animals, we're going to throw the law at this. I think from a good governance standpoint, let's do what we came here to do to make sure that people can take their training animals into places that they need to go. But I think imposing a greater fine is not necessarily a good idea. I'm sure many of you didn't know that this law existed until we had this conversation. And I assure you, your constituents also don't know. And if their dog gets in another fight with another dog and they're found to have committed a crime, they're going to end up with potentially a steep fine that they can't pay. Is that what you want? So I ask for your favorable consideration on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Provenza. Body, you are deciding on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 147. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. Oh my goodness. A little late now. Now remember, these are the ayes. Okay. Okay. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Oh, privilege. Okay, thank you. You may be seated. The amendment has not been adopted, 21 to 34. Go ahead and finish? All right. Senate File 147, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Representative Brown.
Privilege of the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Mr. Speaker, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome back to this House a former representative from the northern part of God's country, Miss Sandy Newsom. Welcome back to the House. Please welcome her.
Welcome to the House, Representative Newsom. Glad to have you. How have you been? Awesome. No, we can't have conversations, can we? We gotta stop that, Representative. See, her form of animal is a horse, if I'm not correct. So that would be her security dog. So, thank you and welcome. Glad to have you back. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 153.
Senate File 153, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Residential real property taxable value, an act relating to taxation and revenue.
We have amendments. First amendment for our consideration. Representative Chestik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is probably the simplest amendment you'll see, is inserting one single word into this bill. The purpose of this amendment is to just clarify, I think it's in keeping with the intent of the bill. It's just clarifying that owners include people who have their property owned in trust. So I'll go a little bit law professor on you for just a second. There's several different ways of owning property. There's legal ownership and there's beneficial ownership. In most cases, that's the same thing but you can separate beneficial ownership from legal ownership if for certain purposes, like estate planning. So when you create a trust, the trust is the legal owner, and the person for whom the trust is pays the benefits to is the beneficial owner. There's a fairly common estate planning technique that people are using frequently, where they create what's called a revocable trust, and they put their assets into a revocable trust, making themselves the beneficiaries of that trust. And a lot of people have their homes in these revocable trusts, and then they grant back to themselves the right to occupy the property and enjoy the property. The way the bill is worded, owner seems to say legal owner. It does not necessarily include beneficial owner. I'm just trying to make it clear that both legal and beneficial ownership qualify for owner occupied. That's the simple explanation. I encourage an aye vote.
Thank you, Representative. Any members for their first time? First time? Seeing none? Okay. Body, you're being asked to vote on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 153. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration, amendment number 2 to Senate File 153. Representative Yin, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File number 153 and ask for your favorable consideration. So members, this goes a little further than the good representative that brought his amendment right before me. This makes it so as long as the house is occupied. So this kind of aligns it with what we had in our other bill, SF 69, where the exemption could be just for it's occupied. This makes it so that rate that we have for owner occupied, we're defining owner occupied to be that the owner made it occupied, not necessarily by the owner himself, but the owner made it occupied. So I'm going to put that in the definition as owner occupied. This helps us so we can cover those long-term renters because we have the multi-month requirement. It's not really going to capture Airbnbs, but it will definitely capture our long-term renters. And because we have that 3 up to 3 family requirement, it's not going to capture multi-unit apartment buildings, right? So if an apartment building has a bunch of units all owned by, the whole building's owned by one entity, that's also not going to be covered. It's talking about individual homes that are long-term rented.
Thank you, Representative. Any members for their first time? Representative Locke, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually, as much as I sort of like this idea, I'm actually on and against the amendment. I think this whole concept of owner occupied was something that was kind of in the original amendment that was voted on. So I tend to say it would be appropriate for us to leave as owner. That's the only reason. I do think there might be some benefit to this, but I'm actually on and against the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lean, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I as well am on and against the amendment. I just want to make sure that our property owners that are living in their homes are getting the most tax relief possible. I understand that without those other property owners, we don't have residential properties that can be rented out. However, they do have a gain in this. And so I want to stick to those that are not profiting from living in their home get the most relief. Thank you.
Representative Storr, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for this amendment, going back to the discussions we had and looking at the fact that what Amendment A did was separate out residential real estate from commercial real estate and further provided an owner-occupied idea. But the idea is really, we want to protect people who live, whether in their homes, whether they own those homes or whether they are renters in those homes. And those are the people that essentially, recognizing we all have a housing issue, those are the people that, all of this tax relief is aimed at. So this is really a thoughtful way of differentiating between our second homeowners and everyone else in a way that I think is actually quite thoughtful and equitable as well. And then that allows us to differentiate between those two. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration. I think this is a great idea.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for the first time? First time, seeing none. Second time, speaking of the amendment. Representative Yin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So members, we all know that property taxes are passed down to the tenants regardless, right? So if we keep it higher, it's going to keep our renters at a disadvantage to the actual homeowners. Renters hopefully will be able to know that we lowered their rate. If we pass this bill with this amendment, their rate won't be lowered and their rent will stay high if we leave them at the higher rate and not give them the same break that we're giving people who own land and own a home. My goal is to keep people in their homes, regardless if they're a renter or a homeowner. I don't want to get them kicked out of Wyoming. So I ask for your favorable consideration of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Body, you're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 153. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has not been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration, second reading amendment number 3 to House Senate File 153. Representative Lean, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 153 and ask for your favorable consideration. Yesterday, we took the opportunity to adopt an amendment that gave us a subclass, which I thought was a great idea. We also need to make sure that we're offering tax relief for our individuals right now. So this amendment moves the taxable rate for residential property for the year 2025 to 8.3%. And then that for owner occupied moving forward would also be at 8.3%. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Anyone for their first time? Representative Thayer, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do just have a question. I was in the committee meeting, and the director of that good department that takes care of this mentioned, as looking at my notes, that since those tax bills have already been drafted and created and getting ready to be sent out. So I'm concerned. I think this is great, but does she have the capacity, or are we going to have to pull all those back? So just a question on that.
Any other members for their first time? Representative Storr? First time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the bringer. Is the concept here that for all residential real property as defined would go down to 8.3% in 2025 and then go back up to 9.5 in 2026, or just that then the entire class and subclass would go down to 8.3% and stay there? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for their first time? First time on the amendment. Seeing none, second time. Representative Thayer, the question. Back to the bringer. Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the questions. In 2025, it would be all residential property would be at 8.3%. Thus, some people would see that that goes back up if you do not have an owner-occupied residential property in 2026. That then creates the subclass where 2026 allows for owner-occupied through the CAMA system to be applied. The department that oversees all of our revenues does not have the ability to separate owner-occupied out this year. However, they do have the authority to change the taxable rate prior to tax bills going out in the next month of this year, so that our individuals would know that their tax bill for this year goes out at one rate and there's no confusion about 8.3 or 9.5%. So residential real property for the tax year of 2025 would be 8.3%. In 2026, those that are not owner occupied would go back up. I ask for your favorable consideration in this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are being asked to vote on second reading amendment number 1. No, second reading amendment number 3. To Senate File 153, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration, we have a second reading amendment number 4 to House Senate File 153. Representative Yin, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Because we didn't pull out renters from the owner-occupied into the owner-occupied, I respectfully withdraw second reading amendment number 4. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The bringer has asked for the amendment be withdrawn without objection from the body. Amendment number 4 has been withdrawn. Senate File 153, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Okay, moving on to third reading.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, I respectfully move to lay back SF 103 for one additional day.
Do I hear any objection from the body? Hearing no objection, 103 has been laid back for one day. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading consent list consisting of the following 10 Senate files. Senate File 5, 26, 46, 56, Senate File 106, 113, 121, 138, 146, and 154.
Would anyone like to have any of these bills removed from the consent list? None? All right, will the reading clerk please read the bills on the consent list?
Senate File 5, sponsored by Senator Cooper. School district vehicles, flashing lights authorized, and act relating to motor vehicles being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 26, sponsored by Transportation, protection of military equipment, and act relating to crimes and offenses, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 46, sponsored by Senator Landon, water and sewer districts, bid requirements, and act relating to water and sewer districts being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 56, sponsored by corporations, providing false information to registered agents, an act relating to corporations, partnerships, and associations being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 106, sponsored by Senator Barlow, motor vehicle dealer and manufacturer warranty rates, an act relating to motor vehicles being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 113, sponsored by Senator Hutchings, Brader Opportunity Act, an act relating to professions and occupations being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 121, sponsored by Senator Boner, rodeo license plates, an act relating to motor vehicle license plates being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 138, sponsored by Senator Dockstader, energy impact on Wyoming economy study, an act relating to energy being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 146, sponsored by Senator Boner, Consumer Rental Purchase Agreement Act amendments, an act relating to trade and commerce being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 154, sponsored by Senator Boner, Industrial Wind and Solar Projects Hearing Deadline, an act relating to industrial development and siting being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Okay, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? Chief Clerk, will please call the roll.
Allemand. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Brady. Bratton. Brown Gary. Brown Landon. Excused Byron. Campbell Elisa. Campbell Kevin. Chestick. Clausen. Connolly. Davis. Eklund. Excused Erickson. Feiler. Geringer. Guggenmoss. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Heft. Jarvis. Johnson. Kelly. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Lean. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas. Excused Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. Riggins. Excused Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strzok. Stivar. Tarver. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Worf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Brown, Landon, excused to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 5, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 26, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 46, are there any changes? Smith, aye to no. Singh, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Brown, Gary, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Lean, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strzok, aye to no. Wasserberger, aye to no. Andrew, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Weber, aye to no. Worf, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Brady, aye to no. Campbell Kevin, aye to no. Nyman, aye to no. Heft, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 38 aye, 21 no, 3 excused. As for Senate File 56, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 106, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 113, are there any changes? Banks, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 1 no, 3 excused. As for Senate File 121, are there any changes? Lean, aye to no. Kelly, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Clauston, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Brady, aye to no. Provenza, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 50 aye, 9 no, 3 excused. As for Senate File 138, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 146, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 154, are there any changes? Kelly, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Lean, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Lucas, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Wasserberger, aye to no. Johnson, aye to no. Singh, aye to no. McCann, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Guggenmoss, aye to no. Rodriguez-Williams, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Weber, aye to no. Heft, aye to no. Brady, aye to no. Yin, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 36 aye, 23 no, 3 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate Files 5, 26, 46, 56, 106, 113, 121, 138, 146, and 154 have passed the House. Moving on to bills on third reading regular. First bill for our consideration is Senate File 62. Read.
Senate File 62, sponsored by Senator Larson. Restrooms in publicly funded schools, an act relating to school districts being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have amendments. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 62 and ask for your favorable consideration.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Body, first of all, I want to thank you for your indulgence and giving us the time to kind of lay back. We are caught up and we have, helps us with a goal of making sure we're aligning some policy in this space concerning intimate spaces and protecting women and girls' privacy. So the amendments you see before you, I know they look like a lot, and there are a good number of things in here. But let me tell you generally what it's doing, and then I'll be happy to then answer some questions. I did a red line version for me because it did help. But what we're doing is, in the other chamber, we had made an agreement that we would let the K through 12 space stay in this bill and take out of the other bill, which is now past third reading over in the Senate. And so what I'm doing is aligning some of the language and policy that was in our position in House Bill 72 into this bill, and I had indicated to the bringer I would do that as part of our what we're trying to achieve here. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm taking things that we already approved in House Bill 72 in the K through 12 space and putting it in here to basically make our policy consistent and strong. And so it's going to include some definitions that weren't previously in there. Recall that we already did an amendment in, I think it was second reading, but we amended in the biological definitions of male and female, for example, and they were right from 72. So that isn't on this sheet, but just know that if you were looking at the sheet right below on line 13, basically you would insert those definitions about that point, but it's in a different amendment and it just doesn't show up here in that way. Just to, don't want to have any confusion about that. We did put those amendments on also. And so again, we're bringing in the policy. We're defining, one of the things that is different or added is the bill before you, Senate File 62, did not include overnight trips with schools. And so we're bringing that in. That was policy that we had decided in the K-12 space, we would have some direction and guidance for schools about how they handle overnight trips. And that is becoming kind of a focal point in this issue of just, random room assignments for a band trip or any kind of extracurricular trip, school-sponsored trip. So that's coming in, and so we're defining those things. And again, trying to conform a little bit so the language is somewhat similar. The bill retains a lot of its characteristics that it had, but where we're making changes, we are trying to align so that, as I recall, I told you that there will still be education space in the other bill, only it relates to colleges and University of Wyoming. So trying to keep everything as consistent as we can as a matter of legal defensibility, as a matter, in some cases, of what we want the policy to be. We wanted to include these things in the K through 12 space, and we wanted to have those assurances. So those are some of the things. I did also add somewhere, I don't see it now, but kind of a right for declaratory relief. I'll look for it, but, and so that in the K-12 space, if a school isn't following the policy, they can go to court and get either a declaratory judgment or an injunction, depending. And so that they would, there's no recovery of damages here, and I didn't bring those over, but I did want to think about the declaratory relief, and it's possible that I'm not seeing it here, but, oh yeah, there it is. It's on page 2, line 38, where it says after action, including, you insert including for declaratory and injunctive relief. Legally, it's really important to me that we have it that clear in the statute that they can get that. That's going to be the most immediate relief that either stops the action or requires action to be taken. That's what declaratory relief does. That's an injunction is usually to stop doing something. So I added that in there just to kind of strengthen that area a little bit, because this is so important. We're talking about our kiddos in the kindergarten to 12 years old. So, some of the language you see on page 2, again, from 20 down to 36, is all just pulling over from what we passed in HB 72. So again, that's what it is. We're bringing some of the language over into this space. What we passed from this House, the K through 12 part has been amended over there before they passed it. So I hope that helps you understand that. And my hope is that I think both sides are probably going to want to do a conference committee. I know I do, and I think probably the other sides, we would do that together and make sure when it's done that we've sorted through, what objections each might have to language change in the other chamber, and then how does it look comprehensively. And I really do appreciate your indulgence on that, because this is really the good and sometimes hard work of policymaking, where we want things to be right and we want them to be consistent. And so, again, that's the amendment, Mr. Speaker, and I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Any members for their first time on the amendment? Representative Heft, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor of the bill finds this set of amendments friendly. I would entertain an aye vote and an aye on the bill.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for their first time? Representative Yin, first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I mean, I want to just caution the body, we've done this a couple times, to not talk about what members that aren't on the floor have said, because they can't come say if it's the truth or not. So just be careful about that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Representative Yin. Any other members for their first time? Seeing none, second time? To the bringer, Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I just urge an aye vote on the amendment, and I appreciate your indulgence, body. Thank you.
Body, you're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 62. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. Senate File 62 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Elliman. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Brady. Repeat. Bratton. Brown Gary. Brown Landon. Excused Byron. Campbell Elisa. Campbell Kevin. Chestick. Clauston. Connolly. Davis. Eklund, excused Erickson. Filer. Geringer. Guggenmoss. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Heft. Jarvis. Johnson. Repeat. Kelly. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Lean. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas. Excused Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. Riggins. Excused Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strzok. Stivar. Tarver. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Worf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 51 aye, 6 no, 5 excused.
Senate File 62, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 62 has passed the House. Next Senate file for our consideration, or do you want, you want to show, okay. Good majority floor leader.
Mr. Speaker, I know you're eager to keep going, but
Well, I am, and that smell has been kind of starting to, yeah, go ahead, majority.
I move that the House stand in recess until 2 p.m.
You have heard this, any committee announcements? Representative Chairman Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee number 6 will meet in about 10 minutes in the Supreme Court chamber to discuss interim topics.
Are there any other JCC announcements? Joint or interim topic meetings? Okay, that's it. You have heard, Representative Knapp.
Mr. Speaker, your corporation's committee number 7 will meet upon noon recess to hear Senate File 95, Senate File 55 engrossed, Senate File 107 engrossed, and Senate File 57.
Chairman Barris, number 2, Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2 will be meeting tomorrow morning, Thursday, the February 27th at 8 a.m. in State Capitol Room E301 and online to continue our discussion of Senate File 34, school finance routine major maintenance calculations, as well as taking up Senate File 148, fire suppression and restoration funding, and any re-referrals as assigned.
Any other announcements? Seeing none, you have heard the motion of the majority floor leader. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The House will stand in recess until 2 p.m.